When I retired, I thought that my body needed to just recover, and I stopped working out. My body fell apart. I'm aging exactly the same as everybody else is aging. It's really about how I want to feel when I'm 80 years old, not right now.
Let's switch over to you, Don, because your story is quite amazing.
It's more than quite amazing.
It was just a few weeks into medical school that I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And they said, you have 3 months to live and you'll never be able to have children. Ultimately, I had a heart transplant.
You were the first one to run a marathon within a year of having a heart transplant.
When I took my first step, I thought, I think I made a big mistake. I was so decompensated. My calf muscles were literally indented. I had a 3-person assist and a rolling walker.
David Beckham is a global icon whose name is synonymous with elite performance. Over a 20-year career at the highest level of professional football, he redefined what longevity looks like for an athlete. Now at 50, he is applying that same world-class discipline to a new mission. Joining him is Dr. Don Mussallem, previously a Mayo Clinic physician who survived stage 4 breast cancer and a heart transplant, only to run a marathon 1 year later. Together, they are stripping away the confusion of the wellness industry to reveal what it actually takes to stay elite at any age.
So kind of walk us through a day in the life of David Beckham in terms of your health routine.
I still want to live and feel like an athlete. Every part of my life, I treat as if I'm still playing.
I think you should have him talk about his time in nature with his farm.
This cockerel is the most handsome cockerel you'll ever see.
So how do you define health now for yourself?
Hey, it's Dr. Hyman. I'm so excited to share this episode with you today, but before we dive in, I want to get your help. Please take a minute to hit that subscribe button, whether you're watching here on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform. It truly means the world to me, and it helps my team and I bring you this podcast every single week. Plus, I don't want you to miss a thing. So thanks so much for being part of this community, and I'm glad you're here.
David, Don, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's so great to have you both here. You both have health journeys and stories to tell. You as an athlete, you as a survivor of breast cancer and heart transplant, and also talk about how the average person can learn from the things that you've learned in ways that are remarkable. Both your stories are extraordinary. You know, one, you as an elite athlete who's learned how to take care of his health from the beginning and then continually improving, even at this age. I think you look better now than you did in pictures when you were like 20.
Now you sound like my wife. She says the same thing to me all the time, and I don't believe her. So
you were kind of a scrawny little kid, though. I saw those pictures.
That's very true. That's very true.
And you know, you came back from 2 impossible things, which is stage 4 breast cancer and a heart transplant, and you look fabulous and glowing. So everybody's going to want to know what have you both done. David, let's start with you. You obviously everybody knows who you are. You're an elite athlete. You're a football player, or as we say here, a soccer player. And you were chatting earlier, you're saying you've always been sort of paying attention to your health, but you kind of also grew up on crap food, like pie and mash
Absolutely.
And fish and chips in the, East End of London. And It wasn't a thing. And, you would go to Cheesecake Factory when you were playing to get your pregame meals.
Yep.
And they gave you a few bucks from the team to play. Mm-hmm. Tell us about how you've kind of thought about your own health as a player, because, most athletes, when we were chatting about this, don't pay much attention to what they're eating. Some high performance Olympians obviously do, but the average people in major league sports, football players, basketball players, soccer players, baseball players, or the other football players, football, don't really pay attention. They're eating crap. And I've seen it. We were chatting. I've seen, what players eat, and friends that own basketball teams or football teams. And I'll go in and after the game, and they're just eating like fried chicken and pizza and pasta and, crap and burgers and hot dogs. And I'm like, if you have a, $1 million racehorse, you're not going to feed it McDonald's and Coke and fries and a milkshake for a pregame Kentucky Derby meal, right?
It's funny you say that though, because, being an owner of a team, I want my players to be healthy. I want them to be doing the right things, eating the right things, drinking the same things or the right things. And each player has to be treated differently. I learned that when I was playing in AC Milan. Each player was treated differently after a game. You'd go and get, you go and have a blood test that tell you exactly how much you've run, what you need to do in the next few games. So, every player gets treated differently these days. It wasn't the same when I was playing, but I walked into our locker room, last season a couple of times, and players are eating pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this the right thing? And they're like, well, players just want something. They don't want something healthy. They don't want something that's that good for you. They just want something. And pizza is the kind of food of choice on most of the players, and that's right after the game. But going back to my upbringing, I grew up in the East End of London. My mum was an amazing cook. My dad worked from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. every single day. So my mum was the one that was home looking after me and my two sisters. Now, my mum, like I said, she, without knowing, prepared me for my career. Yes, we ate fish and chips. Yes, we ate pie and mash. But that was really a kind of a treat at the weekend or a Friday night. I don't know whether you know that, but on a Friday night, it's tradition that you have fish and chips.
Yeah.
And I always used to go on a Sunday morning with my grandma and my granddad, not my granddad because he was working, but my grandma, and we'd always go to our local pie and mash. But
what is pie and mash for Americans? Because I don't know.
Okay, so pie and mash, I'll explain it. So pie and mash is, it's like a mincemeat pie. Yeah. It's a very basic mincemeat pie with pastry. And then you have a mashed potato, but it's not your whipped, creamy, milky mashed potato. It is a mashed potato that is just potatoes and salt. Yeah. And then here's the part where everyone goes, ugh.
That's so bad.
It's called liquor, and it's a kind of gravy, but it's made out of stewed eels and parsley. And it's mixed together, and it's this green sauce that is
eel like the lizard. Like a snake thing.
Yeah. And then you pile like pepper and salt and like chili vinegar, which is it's my favorite meal. That would be my last meal.
That's amazing.
So in all honesty, those were treats. So we understood that those were treats. But during the week, actually, and the night before I would play on a Sunday morning, my mum would always make me like a piece of steak or a piece of grilled chicken and pasta. So that really prepared me for, probably gave me the longevity in my career. From a really early age, I was eating good things. I might have the odd pie mash, fish and chips, but majority of the time I was eating good things. So that really has completely changed now, in the world of football or soccer. Completely changed. The scientific part of, eating and looking after yourself and wellness now has completely gone, full circle, in all honesty, because like I said, when I first joined Manchester United, we at lunchtimes, we used to have steak and chips or pie and chips, baked beans. And for dessert, we'd have a chocolate pudding and chocolate custard every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day.
There's no vegetables in there.
No vegetables. No vegetables. I mean, when you've got beans on your plate and chips, we were like not worried about the vegetables. And the fact that I then continued, I went on and played till I was 38 years old. So I had a long career.
What's the average football players?
At that time, it was probably 32, 34 if you were lucky.
Yeah.
But nowadays, obviously, with all the science that's in with the teams now and the players, their longevity of their careers now is going, some players are playing till 38, 40, 41, 40. So players are long in their careers because of what they're doing to their bodies now.
And did you change over time in terms of what you were doing to maintain your health as you're playing?
No, I was honestly pretty consistent. A lot of players obviously had to change because, I've not talked about, going for a pint, on a Wednesday or a Thursday afternoon. I didn't used to do that, but players used to do that. Before a game on a Saturday, they would go and have 10 pints in the pub on a Wednesday or a Thursday before a game.
Wow.
That's a lot of pints. But I'm talking about 30, 40 years ago. I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking about that time. So it was a different, and players were still performing.
5 quarts of beer, I'd be like on the floor.
I know. But that's really how I was able to, I did adjust. Of course, I adjusted because I had to, but I was pretty consistent through my whole career. Players used to go away after the end of the season, come back, and they would be heavy, and I was never like that. Throughout the summer, I always looked after myself. I never overate. I never drank. I was never a big drinker, in all honesty, anyway. So I was able to go away for 4 or 5 weeks in the summer, eat what I wanted, but I always looked after myself.
And you trained.
The coach would always turn around to us and say, take 4 weeks or just take 2 weeks and do nothing. I never did nothing. I always did my training throughout those 4 weeks.
And that's how you stayed so long in the game.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
And how do you sort of navigate this now, being 50 and like you're,
50 last year.
That's a big year, right?
It was a big year. A lot happened last year for me. So it was a special year last year. Yeah, turning 50 was a big milestone. But to be honest, everyone made, I think my wife made a little bit more fuss about it than me turning 50. She turned 50 the year before me, which I always remind her about, obviously. But she turned 50 the year before me. But I was excited about, I just treated it like any other birthday. I don't feel any different. I don't think I look any different, but a few more grey hairs. But apart from that, no, it's...
But has it made you think differently about your health? Because, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but you created a new company, I Am 8, which is about helping people create health on a simple daily regimen. And you recently launched a longevity product, which we're going to talk about, which I love. What made you sort of want to think differently about your own health that led to kind of this?
Like I said earlier, that, early on in my career, no one talked about the scientific part of looking after yourself, or the wellness part, or the supplement part, or the vitamins part. No one talked about it. It wasn't really a thing that really got talked about. We weren't sat down and said and told to take certain things. But I always looked at the market as something really interesting, and I always looked at what was out there. And even before the end of my career, I started looking at things and what I could do to make my performance better, on the holistic side than any other. Mm-hmm. So I was always looking for things. I was always looking for supplements. I was always looking for different vitamins and things and different smoothies and what I could do to kind of keep myself as healthy and keep, on that level of play and also level of professionalism. So when I started coming towards the end and after my career, I then started to focus, okay, I've been an elite athlete for 22 years. Now I'm not an elite athlete. I still want to live and feel like an athlete. Mm-hmm. I still, every part of my life I treat as if I'm still playing. Yeah. I wake up, I have a schedule, I'm very regimented on what I do every single day, what I take every single day, how I look after myself. Yeah. If I've got an important day, one day, I'll still go to bed at the same time as I did when I played football. So I continued to treat myself and treat my body like when I was playing. But I looked at what was out there, and I had so many people come up to me and say, it's just so confusing. What do you take? What do you do? What do you put in your body? And I'm like, well, I want to be able to turn around to someone and say, okay, this is what I take. And I want it simple. And it's one of the things that I spoke to Danny Young about when we first started the conversations. I said, all I want is simplicity. I don't want to be taking 17 to 20 tablets every single morning. I want to put it in one drink, and I want to put it in water, and I'll mix it up, and I want to take it, and I want it easy. And you want it to taste good. I want it to taste good. And funnily enough, that was one of my things.
Well, it does actually. I'm having some right now.
It's got to taste good, and I want to feel an instant like impact. And I must admit, it's the one thing that people say to us every single day. Like the day after, that week, they feel an instant impact.
So when you turn 50, do you think about your health differently, or are you just like, I'm on the same regimen, I'm going to act like I'm 20 and keep
I don't think
what's your daily regimen that you
I don't think of my time at 50. I want to think of my time at 80.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
And that's really why I'm doing the things that I'm doing now. It's why I'm looking to the future rather than looking at 50, because I've done what I've done. I'm aging exactly the same as everybody else is aging. I might have been an athlete for, a long time, but I'm still aging the same as what you're aging, what everyone else is aging. So, it's really about how I want to feel when I'm 80 years old, not right now, because I've done what I've done to get myself to this point. I feel good. And that's what I want to continue.
Amazing. Let's switch over to you, Don, because your story is quite amazing. And
It's more than quite amazing.
yeah, it's kind of like, I don't think I've ever met anybody who's had your story. And I also don't think I've ever really met anybody who looks as good as you who's had a heart transplant. You're a physician. You trained in sort of integrative medicine. You work at Mayo Clinic in, teaching women who are going through breast cancer how to do that in a holistic way. You have been a patient, and that's led you on a health journey for yourself and made you so passionate about bringing this to so many people. And I think a lot of us who are in this field are like that. We've had some horrible thing happen to us. Regular medicine didn't figure it out, and then we had to figure it out for ourselves. So maybe you could share a little bit about, as a patient and survivor, like what was it about your health journey that helped to lead you to where you are now and this mission that you're on to bring health to so many? And tell us a little bit about like what you went through.
So thanks, Mark. And thank you, David. I know you're having to listen to this again. But it's powerful. And, so often I almost in the beginning was embarrassed and a little quiet about sharing my story. But then I was getting so much feedback about how inspiring it was and giving individuals hope. And I really want to help move individuals beyond hope to knowing that they too can attain their vitality without pause and flourish beyond massive healthcare adversity, which is what I did. And much like you, David, I lived a very healthy lifestyle growing up because my mom was at home. She cooked these healthy meals, and that's a big part of it. When you have, I think, a solid foundation of health and wellness, you have much better outcomes. And so this is a big shout out because when I work with women, a lot of times they're very inspired to want to make change within themselves. But then quickly, the next thing they say is, yes, but my husband's not going to want to do this. What about my kids? And this is really a big shout out that the earlier we start, the more likely you're going to have a flourishing life, regardless of whatever may come to you, because we don't have total control over health adversity. Even if you're living a healthy lifestyle, it's not to blame yourself. These things sometimes just happen.
Yeah, you didn't get breast cancer because you're eating crap or something. We live in a toxic environment, and who knows, Yeah.
I have so many women that come in and they ask that question, why me? And that was one thing I never did. I never felt like I was in a battle or I was fighting this. I just trusted. I looked for lessons, and I really felt it's like amor fati, like this was really happening, for me, not to me, but it was just a few weeks into medical school that I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it just.
And you were how old?
I was 26.
That's crazy.
So it was just really quite surprising that this was the diagnosis that had happened. And, they came into the room. This was the year 2000, Thanksgiving weekend. And they came in. I had actually collapsed. They had to take me to urgent surgery. I was in cardiogenic shock, 16 centimeter mass wrapped around my chest because I was misdiagnosed. Doctors really didn't think anything was wrong with me. But with the fast-paced medicine that people don't just pause. And this was, starting back in the 2000s when healthcare was really starting to shift even back then. No one ever listened to my lungs. So I ended up getting diagnosed at a very late stage. And so I had this massive tumor wrapped around my heart that was compressing the great vessels. And that resulted in cardiogenic shock. They did a thoracotomy the next day.
That's when they crack open your chest.
Yeah, just big, massive surgery. And, the next day they came in my room and they said, you have 3 months to live without chemotherapy, 20 months to live with chemotherapy. You have stage 4 cancer and you're going to need to drop out of medical school and you'll never be able to have children. It was like all these absolutes. And I thought, wow,
that's a lot to hold.
It was interesting, and I remember just feeling very sturdy though and steady. I'd always had faith in God and belief in something bigger than myself. And I just trusted, I was in medical school. So there was this element of curiosity, which was kind of an interesting psychology, but I never fought it. I knew I needed to do the conventional therapy. So went on to do chemotherapy and bone marrow transplant, radiation therapy, stayed in school the whole time. But when I had my knowing, the great question you asked is, how did you know you wanted to do what you did? Is I remember during my bone marrow transplant, my oncologist was very special. He had a bicycle in my room.
You had surgery, you had chemo, you had radiation,
yeah,
and then you had a bone marrow transplant.
And a bone marrow transplant. This was in 2000. So this was back when they just really gave you high doses of treatment to just totally deplete the immune system. And then they gave it back to you. So it was pretty powerful.
And by the way,
treatment.
just for people listening who don't understand what a bone marrow transplant is, essentially they destroy your own immune system. They kill your bone marrow,
yeah, and
then they give you somebody else's bone marrow, which rebuilds your immune system, and then hopefully will help you survive. But it's a lot.
Right. That's exactly right. And this was with the City of Hope. This was in a research study because they knew that, otherwise there's no way really to cure this cancer. And so that's what they did.
The Hail Mary.
It's a Hail Mary. And so it was so fascinating though. I kept my life the way it always was. I always wake up at 4 a.m. I would ride the bike that was in my room. There was also a bicycle that my oncologist had at the nurse's station so I could sneak out. And it was in that sneaking out to watch the sunrise, to go ride my bike at the nurse's station. Everyone in the other room.
Wait, you brought a bike into the nurse's station?
The oncologist did. He was so cool.
Like
he knew
a stationary bike.
2 stationary bikes. I had 2 bikes. One in my room on the days that he really didn't want me to leave. And he said, yeah, most mornings, everyone's tucked in the rooms. You're fine to come out. And I'd ride my bike and watch the sunrise every day for about an hour. I mean, this is when my hemoglobins were like 6. It was crazy. It was really fascinating.
Wait a minute. You have to understand what she's talking about, because I recently had surgery and my hemoglobin went to 7 and I could barely sit up in a chair. And here you're saying you're riding your bike. That's when you have no blood in your body. It's like a third of the blood that you're supposed to have in your body.
It is true. But, I'm a smaller stature individual. I was very much into cardiovascular exercise, but you are too.
Yeah.
And we each have our different reserves. But I was very fit. Prior to my cancer diagnosis, I would do Camelback Mountain in Arizona twice. I'd go up, come down, go up, come down, and then I'd even run after that. So I was very fit. I had a high VO2. So I had a lot of reserves. So when my hemoglobin was low, I would even climb Camelback with like hemoglobins of 7. It was crazy. I just was very blessed to have this high vitality. But you know why? It's because I showed up for myself. I ate right. I exercise regularly, and we know exercise during chemotherapy is incredibly powerful. We know it improves outcomes. In recent colorectal cancer studies showed like on par with the benefits of chemo. It's really important exercise. This
exercise
is what you did your whole
medicine.
Life. Yeah, exercise is just so important that we move our body. But I just remember looking out and seeing everyone else in the rooms, and they were dying in an effort to stay alive. But I describe it as I attained my vitality without pause, and it was the lifestyle that made the difference. And I really do attribute that to why I'm here today. And unfortunately, those treatments were, ones that we really didn't know what they would do to someone. They cured the cancer. What a blessing, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't be here. But they caused advanced heart failure. So
we cured the disease, but the patient died.
Yeah, exactly. It's another testament to the importance of exercise, because when I was found to have advanced heart failure, my ejection fraction, I don't think I've ever heard of one lower. It was 8%.
And you were walking around?
No, I was actually ready to collapse. I was in cardiogenic shock again. And this was in the year 2003. So it was about 3 years after my bone marrow transplant.
That's like, for people in plain English, it's like basically about 1/7 of what your heart should be pumping. If it can only beat and pump 1/7 of the blood, that's what she had.
It was really hard. And I had lived with heart failure for 18 years.
That's insane.
And I remained I finished residency, did a hospital fellowship, and heart failure, you get better. You get worse because you overdo it. You get better, you get worse. There was a lot of procedures along the way and different interventions that they kind of would patch me up. And I'd work a little better for a while, and I'd kind of decompensate.
And the chemo is what destroyed your heart.
Yeah. It's really fascinating.
Or the radiation.
Well, this is super cool science. So, ultimately, I had a heart transplant, and they are investigating the heart and the genes in the heart and how this could have happened. And they identified something called the Titin gene. And this Titin gene is a gene that makes the myocytes, the heart cells, very sensitive to chemo and radiation and childbirth. And I was actually able to have a baby. And so I went into this end stage heart failure right after I delivered my child. So it was kind of like a triple hit. So most individuals, if they have chemo, they're okay.
Wow, you had a baby and a heart failure. That's
but all three.
And how are you still smiling? It's so impressive.
Well, it's just such a blessing. And, that's the beauty of post-traumatic growth, right? If you have adversity and you rise above, you know how hard life can be. And now it's like I live this seamless, just truly blissful, glorious life. Just a life without resistance is so easy. Life is so easy now.
But you had a heart transplant in 2021, right?
It's the ultimate longevity hack, I must say, because I have a very young heart in my body. So I'm not recommending anyone else do it. But
you were the first one to run a marathon within a year of having a heart transplant, or were you the only one who's had a heart transplant who's run a marathon?
No, there's been other men. Actually, I don't believe that there's been a woman that's actually run it. I think there was one woman that walked one, but it was many years after her heart transplant. Yeah. So this was exactly 1 year after my heart transplant. And after I said I was going to do that, I thought, when I took my first step, I thought, I think I made a big mistake. I was so decompensated. My calf muscles were literally indented. I had a 3-person assist and a rolling walker. And I was just thinking, I may not be able to do this. I was like, I've got to try. So I applied all those pillars of lifestyle medicine.
After the surgery, you're on a walker.
Yeah, after the surgery, on a walker. I was on life support.
But not during the marathon, you weren't on a walker.
No, I ran that hard, man. I shined. That was pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, we have a cardio sports medicine specialist who's a cardiologist at Mayo, and they ran races with me leading up to the marathon. I trained very smart. The truth is, I actually ran a marathon at the 11 month because we wanted to run one marathon just to make sure I would be safe in terms of public, because we didn't want the cameras on me and she dies.
Well, this sort of speaks to the really next question I have for you, which is you went through all this, which almost killed you. And these are serious diseases, stage 4 breast cancer, heart failure. They're not really lifestyle diseases. I mean, heart failure was from chemo. How did it change how you think about your own health and investing in your health and your own sort of regimen for creating health? And then how did it affect, your thinking about what you're doing in the world?
It's been so inspiring to be able to figure out how important lifestyle is. And I always was really fascinated with food. So I've always really invested in eating healthy, but sometimes it was a little too restrictive and it wasn't balanced and it wasn't with harmony. There was a little bit of turbulence. Maybe I was doing it out of fear, where now I really, eat to live. And I embrace that in a way that it's enjoyable. And it's something that individuals should really try to do the same. I don't think that we should use fear tactics to inspire others to eat healthy. This is just what fuels our body. You don't put, we've heard these analogies. You don't put junk in a car. You shouldn't put junk in your body.
Yeah.
I mean, getting rid of the ultra processed food. And David, that's what you said was so important, is your mom was there cooking dinner for you. You didn't eat fake food.
I was lucky.
That's the most important thing.
I think fish and chips and pie and mash actually sounds pretty healthy to me compared to what most people eat today.
But I'm talking about fish and chips and pie and mash, and then we've got Dawn telling her inspiring story.
It's okay.
Well, just really blessed. And exercise and movement. I always move my whole, life, and I continue to do that. So I think I was really blessed that I had this very healthy childhood that my parents really believed in. And it just set the stage for this to be just very natural for me in this entire transition. The one thing that I would say I really have to work on is sleep. I'm not very good with sleep.
Me too.
I'd rather be alive. Mm-hmm. Sleep is really hard. I sleep good, but I don't want to sleep. I want to live. So that's my goal, is find a pill that can replace sleep. There is a gene, and maybe we all have this, that you just don't require as much sleep. We think that these individuals can get restorative.
I definitely have that gene.
Do you? I think I do too.
I must have that gene.
Yeah, I'm happy with 4 hours.
I feel like I'm missing out when I'm sleeping. I feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I know.
Something's going on that I want to be part of.
So the idea of you sleep when you're dead, life's too fun.
Yeah, you're right.
But you do need to sleep.
You do need to sleep. It's important.
You do need to sleep for metabolic health. And, so I think that this is actually a very important thing that we have to focus on. And when I was running that marathon, that was one thing I really was mindful of. And you said another really important thing, David, is that you're very regular with your sleep and you have sleep consistency, because there's research now that says, that's important. 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., you need that sleep. That's like the critical hours if you can be really regular, especially over a lifetime. So, but, there's no magic bullet, but, we all know, in my background was in exercise physiology. And so I did a lot of research early on, and we called it ergogenic aids at the time. And that was nutraceuticals to support sports performance or peak performance, human existence. And so I really do believe in supplements as an adjunct to a healthy lifestyle. It's never going to replace a healthy lifestyle, but even the healthiest of lifestyles just isn't enough anymore. There's a lot of nutrient gaps. The NHANES data, you talk about this often. It's hard to get what you need, even if you're eating what you think may be an ideal diet.
What she's talking about in English is this study that the government puts on called the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. Essentially, it's a big study that's been going on for decades that tracks everybody in America and what they're eating and their health and their blood tests and their nutrition levels. And this studies find that over 90% are deficient or insufficient in one or more nutrients at the level, not that's optimal for health, but at the level that you wouldn't get a deficiency disease. So how much vitamin C do you need to not get scurvy? I think 10% of Americans are deficient in vitamin C at the level that would give them scurvy, or 80% are deficient or insufficient in vitamin D, or 93% are low in omega-3s, and 50% are low in magnesium and zinc. And it's a lot. And we're seeing this at Function Health, which is the company that I co-founded to help people track their own personal health data. It's shocking. 70% are low in the Quest reference range, which is the standard reference lab we use. 70% are low in one or more nutrients at the level that's not the level I think is good, or you would think is good. Like vitamin D of 30 is not good. It should be 50. Or a ferritin or iron stores of 16 is not good. It should be 45. If it's between, lower than 45, you'll get hair loss and fatigue and all kinds of sleep issues and other things. And, omega-3 fats and vitamin D. And it's amazing to see the problems in a population that actually is pretty health forward, because they're actually going to do proactive things about their health. So what about the rest of the population? So I think providing basic nutrients is so important. But I want to kind of loop back, David, to you, because what you said kind of struck me was, you're not doing what you're doing now to stay healthy at 50. You're doing what you're doing now to stay healthy at 80. So kind of walk us through a day in the life of David Beckham in terms of your health routine. And what are the foundational things?
It's actually not that interesting, but I will tell you. Obviously, I have 4 children. So I have my daughter who's 14 years old. She's still obviously at school every single day. So my mornings really revolve around getting her out of bed, downstairs, breakfast inside her. I wake up at probably 6:15, 6:30 every morning because I like to go downstairs, make sure everything's set up, breakfast, the fire's on, lights are on, music's on, radio's on, the radio station that she loves. So, and then she comes down at around 7:30. Victoria's up by then as well. So she's a kind of an early riser as well. So she comes down around the same time as me. And then we wait for Harper to come down. She comes down, she has breakfast. Most of the time it's, she has scrambled eggs or some cereal or some fruit. And then I drive her to school.
You're the chauffeur. Do you wear a hat?
I should get a hat because she likes to sit in the back sometimes when she's got her friend, but no, most of the time.
My daughter was like, don't talk to me. You don't know me. Like, just drop me off like 100 yards from the door school.
I'm actually not there yet. She's not like embarrassed of me at the moment. So, yeah. And even if she shows any of those kind of sides, I'm all over her. Like, I'll walk in, I'm kissing her, I'm telling her that I love her in front of her friends, her teachers. But I love that time in the morning. I love, Victoria goes into the gym. She starts her session quite early. So she does like 45 minutes before me. And then we go in and we work out together.
You do
but I'll get to that. So I take her to school, I drop her off. And then obviously I drive back to the house. I go into the gym, and that's like my time with Victoria to work out and laugh. I love to work out and laugh. And that's why I actually work out with my wife, because she makes me laugh. And I make her laugh, apparently, but she's laughing at me rather than anything else. So she does about 30 to 40 minutes on the stair climber first before I get there. And then we work out with one of my close friends who's actually an ambassador for IM8, Bobby Rich. So he works us out, and I mean, he loses his mind working out with me and Victoria because Victoria always says that I procrastinate. Yeah, she says I'm always trying to like talk to him about something to slow the session down. But I'm always taking the right like time in between each set. But she's like, okay, let's go. So she's always jumping onto it. So we work out together for an hour. We laugh a lot at each other. And that's part of the routine, in all honesty.
Well, family, connection, love, laughter, exercise. You already got like 5 really big health points. Yeah.
And then obviously
before you even have breakfast.
before we've had breakfast. So then we're working out, and actually there's one exercise which she actually cried once through this exercise because she found it so difficult. And every time I try and get Bobby to do it at least once a week because it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh to watch her go through this painful like exercise. But she does the same. There's exercises that I'm not very good at as well. So anyway,
what is that exercise that makes you cry?
It's a pull-up, but like you have to slowly let yourself down. And I don't know what, she was having a moment during that session, and all of a sudden I was like, you're not crying, are you? You're crying. And I made a big thing of it. So, but we laugh about it. So we work out together. We have a lot of fun. And then she goes up to shower, and then I go up to make us a smoothie. We both have like a smoothie each with IM8 in it. And she's obsessed with it. And she's not easy to like change supplement. Whatever she's taking, she's like very loyal to that. Yeah. But then when we started the IM8, I think it was 2024 that I started taking it. She was very curious, but she was like, well, I've got my thing. It can't be as good as my thing. Yeah. And I was like, well, you're going to have to change at some point to show some loyalty to me. So, yeah, so she changed finally. But But then, so we have our smoothie, I go up and shower, and then I head into the office. I always eat at 1:30 every day. I have grilled salmon, brown rice, vegetables. Then I have a full day in the office. I go and pick my daughter up every day at 4:00, which I feel very blessed to be able to do that, because not every parent gets that opportunity. Yeah. I drive her home, and then we prepare dinner, and then, put her in bed, and then do exactly the same the next day.
Amazing.
That's it. That's
good. You're eating healthy. You're with family. You're laughing. You're connected. I mean, that's it, really. I mean, I think, people don't understand that it's not that hard. That it's just a consistency. It's the daily habits. It's building a routine, and your sleep stuff is also important. So tell us about
sleep stuff is really important, because I think, like me and Dawn just said, I'm not great at sleeping. Like I just want to be awake, to be honest. But throughout my career, I was pretty good. I always went to bed like 10:00 was the latest I went to bed the night before a game. And the games would always be at like either 3:00 in the afternoon or 4:00 or sometimes in the evening. But I would always go asleep at the same time every single night. And I always slept pretty well, unless it was a big game where I was a little bit kind of not nervous or anxious, just excited. Mm-hmm. I was not one of those nervous players. I was kind of excited about the game. So my sleep these days is a lot better than what it was when I was playing, and that's down to Victoria. Victoria's always like, we're in bed early, we're sleeping early because we're up tomorrow early. So I always try and get at least seven hours at least. Every night, and I know you need a little bit more than that, but that's pretty good for me.
That's great.
So that has really been, part of my kind of thing that I've really worked hard on, because when we talk about balance, in people's diets, in people's lifestyle, it's not just about what you take. It's about everything else that you do. Like we've just said, I laugh throughout my workout. I walk my dogs. I take my daughter to school. I do have pie mash every now and again. It is about balance, and we have to get that right. It's about a number of things that we do, and sleep is a big part of that. And I have worked harder at that. Like I've worked harder at drinking more water. I was never great at drinking a lot of water, but now I'm great at it apparently. But, you get up a few times during the night, obviously, but if you drink too much water,
I think you should have him talk about his time in nature with his farm.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. You're a beekeeper. You're a gardener.
It's a big part of my life. Yeah, it's a big part of my life.
Yeah, nature is also medicine.
Yeah.
So tell us, is this in the UK?
This is in the UK. It's in the Cotswolds, down in the countryside. And I started. Throughout lockdown. After lockdown, I was like, okay, I want to create our own. I want our own food. I want our own vegetables. I want to be able to grow things that we eat every weekend. So that's what I do. So I created this farm that's grown and grown and grown. And then we started obviously with the bees. The bees was the first thing, actually. The bees was the first thing, which me and one of my children came to me throughout lockdown. And he was like, Dad, have you seen these beehives online? He said, let's get one. So we bought it was a flat pack beehive. We stayed up till 4 a.m. building it. And then I was like, do the bees, I had no idea. This was my first time even thinking about bees and honey. And I was like, do the bees come naturally? And obviously they don't. You have to buy the bees. So you buy the bees, and a man comes up in a white van, and he gets out with a cardboard box. And he says, there you go, there's your bees. And you're stood there holding this box of bees.
And you don't have one of those suits on yet.
No, because they're all in the box still. So you've got this box of bees, and there's 5,000 bees in each box.
5,000?
5,000. There's one queen bee, and there's 5,000 bees. So I'm stood there. So then I contacted a local beekeeper, and she's amazing. So she came round, and her name's Helen. She's unbelievable. She came round and she said, okay, this is how it works. We put the bee suit on, we put the bees, transferred the bees from the box into the hive. And that's really how it all began. But I must admit, I post a lot with my stuff that I do in my garden. because I have this amazing cockerel and I have these amazing hens. This cockerel is the most handsome cockerel you'll ever see. I'm going to show you a picture.
He struts
is
around.
So handsome, and he struts around, and he's gorgeous. He's so handsome. But one of the things that I get a lot of comments from. I like to walk around my garden in bare feet. You know, not when I'm planting, but I once was planting a rose, and I was digging with, obviously I was digging with no shoes on and no socks on, and it didn't go down very well. So everyone had a lot of comments about that. Because of the roses. But I love it. You know, it's one of those that I always go down to the countryside for a day and just walk around in bare feet, walk around my garden, walk around the vegetable garden, and it's one of my big passions.
Being in nature is something we're all
organic,
deficient in.
Yeah,
you know? And you eat it, and you eat the food.
And I eat the food.
Chickens eat the eggs.
Eat the eggs. We have 6 hens, 1 cockerel. I have 7 ducks. So we have duck eggs.
Duck eggs.
Duck eggs. We have some amazing apple juice actually at the house now as well. So we have apple juice. We have jam. Plum jam
from the trees.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we have so many plum trees that I was just like, what am I going to do with all these plums? So one weekend, Victoria came down and the table was like covered in these plums. She was like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm going to make some jam.
I love it. I love it. Wow. And Don, how about you? I mean, in terms of your routine, I mean, you're in your early 50s. You've had 2 major illnesses, you know, that mostly would have killed people. And you look like you're just starting your life. So what is your sort of routine and non-negotiables that you've kind of come to understand that are part of essentials for your life?
Yeah, you know, I wake up at 4 a.m. every morning. I start my work early. That's when my mind is nice and clear. And I exercise in the morning. So I try to get a 60-minute run in the morning. I eat a whole food plant predominant diet. But for the most part, I've done that most of my life. When I'm traveling, I'll add in some fish here and there just because it gets hard to do whole food plant-based. But I really stick to a healthy nutritional pattern, getting lots of vegetables and fruits. I really focus on that food diversity for the gut microbiome. I don't have a garden. I wish I did, because I'm just so inspired by that story. It's just very hopeful. It's something I think I want to do in 2026.
You should.
Yeah, you've inspired me. I don't know if I can get roosters, but yeah, this is pretty, or hens. This is pretty exciting. So I really live by what I speak to my patients about in my own lifestyle, but I have such meaning and purpose in my career. My work is not work. It is my love and my passion, truly. So I start my day typically about 8 or 9 o'clock with patients, and I have pretty long days. I go pretty late. Research projects, keep me busy. And I started the lifestyle medicine residency curriculum at Mayo Clinic. Wow. And I'm medical director for employee well-being, where, it's so meaningful because they're people that saved my life. So to help them be their healthiest version of themselves, they're caring for our patients. So really to help them learn how to cook healthy, started a fitness center at Mayo Clinic. So our staff at Mayo actually have access to a gym that's open 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and no charge. Wow. So it's pretty cool. So they can go and exercise right on site. And, this is really cool. So part of that employee well-being, we're actually doing a 100-person randomized controlled study with the IMA. This is a high-stress group of individuals. So it's going to be fun to look at those nutrient deficiencies, that those nutrient gaps.
So you're testing them before?
Yep. We're large panel of testing. And Danny Jung has really invested appropriate. I mean, I don't know of any other nutraceutical company that dedicates resources to having a scientific advisory board as well as the research. So we're really excited about doing this study at Mayo Clinic. And we actually brought IM8 onto Mayo Clinic's Mayo Clinic Ventures because we're not allowed to collaborate with outside industry. But in this realm where we're building product and helping to advance the science, we're able to do this. So it's really exciting. And it's fun to do it in the staff. And the staff are really excited about it. So we actually sell IM8 in the Mayo Clinic pharmacy. A lot of my patients do really nicely with it. They love the flavor. They love the convenience like we talked about. But it's really fun for me to be able to not just care for patients, but help to optimize staff as well. So it's been
because really healthcare workers are among the sickest in the country.
They really are.
Yeah.
And they're role modeling this behavior, which is so, so critical. And, I guess, for me, winding down the end of the day, my daughter is in college now. She's 22. So, it's easy to kind of work a little bit later. And I try to go to bed by 10 o'clock. I don't get my 7 hours sleep, but I just don't feel. I wake up, I like spring out of bed.
Wow.
I don't
So
use
you
an
got
alarm.
wait a bed at 10, wake up at 4. That's a.
I love my 4 a.m. Sometimes it's like 3:22. Like this morning it was 3:22, but I'm on California time, so we're allowed. It's really 6:22 my time.
Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. What's one habit that is sort of non-negotiable that you would never give up, or that you maybe a bad habit that you like that maybe it's the pie match?
My one non-negotiable habit that to be honest, it's working out. It's working out because when I retired, I thought that my body needed to just recover, and I stopped working out. I just sat and did nothing for. I planned to do nothing for 6 months because I thought my body has been through everything. It's been through surgery. It's been, beating it up over that time. But it was the worst thing I could have done. So from that day, I was like, I'm always doing something. Whether it's
Did you do nothing for 6 months?
I did nothing for 6 months.
And what happened to you?
My body fell apart. I thought that, my back would feel better, my knees would feel better, my ankle, I ruptured my Achilles through my career. I thought that the body needed to just recover, and it was the worst thing I could have done. So gradually I started getting back into, cycling. I started, boxing. I tried everything. And then I found a workout that worked for me, and that's my non-negotiable. I will work out every single morning. And if I'm traveling, I'll be doing press ups in my room. I'll do something. I'll always do something to just get my mind, because it's not that I don't care about what I look like. It's not all about that. It's actually what mentally and how I feel. So that's my non-negotiable.
Yeah, I agree. For me too. Especially, the older you get, the more non-negotiable it is. Yeah. Like when you're younger, you can get away with it.
That's very true.
I've had many back surgeries, and to me, it's just a foundation for feeling good. If I don't, my back hurts. Yeah. And so I know I have to do it just for keeping myself going, and it makes me feel good, and it's just good for everything.
Exactly.
So, yeah. If you don't move, you won't.
No, it's true.
How about you, Don?
My non-negotiable is waking up at 4 a.m. because I just have so much I want to do, including move. But I have a lot. So it is my quiet time. So it's just so peaceful. But my non-negotiable is 4 a.m. or earlier, actually. So.
I mean, I love that if you go to bed early enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I try. 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love getting up early, and I love the quiet, and I love that, like, nobody's bothering me. It's like, you wake up at 5 and at 4 or 6, it's like the world's still asleep and you can have this moment. It's great. So what's a food you could eat every day?
Oh my goodness. A food I can eat every day.
It could be pie and mash if you want.
It could be pie and mash, but it shouldn't be pie and mash.
But it can. That's okay.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, when you do everything else right, it doesn't have to be about perfection. So
a food I could eat every day. You know what? And it's quite controversial. A radish.
A radish.
I love radishes.
The spicy radishes?
Spicy radishes.
From the garden.
From the garden.
Yeah.
From the garden. I pull them, I clean them a little bit, and then I love radishes.
Leave some of the dirt on, because then you get some more probiotics.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, a good adjunct to your IM8.
Yeah, so radish.
I like that. That's good.
How about you, Don?
Oh, mine is easy. The purple sweet potato. I just love those. Yeah. They're glorious. You had them, right? They're so gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the Okinawan sweet potatoes. And in Okinawa is one of the blue zones where people live a very long time. So
they have 150% more anthocyanins than blueberries. That powerful fiber nutrient.
Eat them almost 3 times a week. Like they're in my house all the time. And if I can't find them in the grocery store, it's very upsetting.
You're right. Or they'll sell out, or they're a little bit out of season. So there's a way you can grow them.
I should grow them. Yeah.
Oh, you should grow them.
I get messages from people in the UK. Okay. Where can I get purple sweet potatoes? David Beckham has them.
Yeah, those are great. That's a great.
I'm going to have a long queue outside my house.
How about recovery? What's your most important recovery tool you use?
IM8. IM8 actually is, I've had a couple of things in the last couple of years where I've had to have, whether it be nasal surgery or, dental surgery. And the one thing that I took every single morning and it helps me recover quickly was IM8. Other than that, an ice bath. I love ice baths. It helps me recover from, it clears my head. It clears my head. Even if I've not worked out, I'll go and sit in an ice bath for 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Yeah. What temperature?
Well, I go in and it's
really long.
It's like 2 degrees.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's cold.
You're like Wim Hofing.
It's cold.
Holy cow. I got like, I don't know, like somebody said I had like 6% body fat. And if I did that, I'd be like shaking for an hour.
Well, yeah, you have to have a shower close to warm your bones up. But ice bath seems to recover muscles, my muscles and, my aches and pains. And I love it. I love ice bath.
I have what I call a tribathlon. It's a sauna, a hot tub, and a cold plunge on my deck.
I like that.
That's good.
I like that.
You can come over and do my tribathlon anytime. How about you, Dawn? What do you do?
Oh gosh, I feel like my life is a little bit complex. I feel like sometimes I get just so busy and I recover really quick because of my nutrition. And so I find that my whole food plant-based nutrition just has such powerful anti-inflammatory properties that I can really just keep going. But I would say for me, it's not necessarily something I do every single day, but every 3 months I do a 5-day fasting mimicking diet with Prolon. I really, and I'm not sponsored by them, but I really love that. And I use that fasting mimicking diet for my patients during chemotherapy, actually, for their 72-hour fast. So I'm a big advocate for that. I'm not a good faster like daily. I like to eat as soon as I wake up.
Well, you're little and thin, so if you didn't fast, like me, you'd kind of waste away.
And I need energy. As soon as I wake up, I am intuitive. I listen to my body like I would never get in that cold. I get in the hot.
Now you're sounding like Victoria. Victoria's never got in. Actually, she got in the ice bath once.
Oh, good for her.
Just the once.
That was love, by the way.
It was love.
Good for Victoria.
It was. Well, I actually told her it tightens skin. I was like, it tightens your skin. She was like, okay. She was like, I'm in. So yeah, she only did it once. She didn't need it.
Bring on the wrinkles. Yeah, so the fasting is what I would recommend. I think that trying to get that 12 hours each night is great, but I'm not good at that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's what you said. I think I want to just double down on the anti-inflammatory diet. It should be a sort of a non-negotiable recovery tool, because whether you're a professional sports or whether you're just a human being wanting to live up and feel good, it's so important. And I think with my patients, I see how much inflammation plays a role in their health or disease, actually, and how much an anti-inflammatory diet can actually help them feel better. And I created something called the 10-day detox diet, which was just the name of what I did with my patients. An elimination diet adds in all the healthy foods and the anti-inflammatory foods and takes out all the inflammatory foods. And you do it for 10 days, and people's lives are changed. I mean, not just they lose weight, but the inflammation goes out of their body. Their skin clears up. Their rashes go away. Their joints feel better. Their headaches go away. Their digestion gets better. And it's so simple. It's just basically taking out the bad stuff, putting in the good stuff. And it's in 10 days, we've done thousands of people. There's a 70% reduction in all symptoms from all diseases in 10 days. And it sounds like I'm hyperbolic, but actually that's what people find. And it's so quick. And I would say people don't believe how they can feel better. They don't realize how close it is if they just change a few habits. So hopefully this inspires them to do some habit change. So anti-inflammatory diet, I don't know about the 10-minute cold plunge, but the workout for sure. What are you more strict about now at 50, in your 50s than you were when you were 18 that you're sort of like doubling down on?
Sleep and drinking water. I'm definitely stricter with that now. I think that's almost a non-negotiable. It's almost sleep and water.
When you started to say drinking, I was like, drinking? Wait.
I had to correct that really quickly.
Sleep and drinking. Water. Okay.
There was a little bit too much of a pause between drinking and water. Definitely not 10 pints.
And how about you, Dawn?
For me, it's sleep too. And I really work on that. I'm very intentional because I found out when I wasn't sleeping, my metabolic health was more deranged. It wasn't because I had a body composition issue. I wasn't sleeping. So we really do need to honor our sleep. And, a unique thing I find in my patients is so much sleep apnea that would have otherwise been not detected. That's not necessarily my situation, but this is just a shout out. Sleep hygiene is something really to focus in on. So for me, it would be sleep too.
Sleep, I agree. Sleep is important. All right. So how do you define health now for yourself, both of you? David, you start.
How do I define health? To be honest, I want to obviously look after myself, but I want my family to understand.
What does health mean to you? Like, what is, when you think of health, what does it represent?
I think it represents everything that is in my life at the moment. And that really wasn't, I'm not saying it wasn't as important when I was playing, because when you're an athlete, you're surrounded by doctors, by nutritionists, by people that want to look after you and have to look after you. But now, obviously, for a long time, I've been looking after myself in a different way purely because I've had to. You know, of course, I have an amazing wife that does everything for me. You know, she makes my smoothies when I'm not making them for her. So I have an amazing wife that does that. But my health, I've noticed how important it is for me because there's nobody else doing it for me other than myself. And I have to do that. I have to do that.
How about you, Dawn?
Yeah, I think that's just so important. For me, it would be, you know, especially going through healthcare adversity, is just to wake up each morning and feel good, you know, and not have any resistance and impediments and things that are pulling you down, whether it's aches or pains or reduction in energy, shortness of breath, chest pain, whatever it may be, but just to live that life without those ailments. And, you know, I just find even in my patients during chemotherapy, when they're taking good care of their bodies, that they're able to attain that vitality. And then to use that vitality to really, you know, go after your meaning in life and then share that with others. And it just fulfills this beautiful purpose-driven life.
I think that's really important, Dawn. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of people walk around with what I call FLC syndrome. You know what that is? That's when you feel like crap.
That's a good one.
and that, you know, that's something people think they have to live with. And, you know, the work both of you are doing, you know, with support things like IMA, healthy diet, exercise, sleep, it's not that hard. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for doing the work you do in the world and making it a little bit better place.
Thanks, Mark. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
If you love that last video, you're going to love the next one. Check it out here.